typically when I do the podcast, I want to get people with different experiences in education, who've been in the profession for a while and learn from their years of experience. But I had a really great opportunity to interview Taylor Teamann, who is Amber Teamann's daughter. And I know she doesn't want to be known by that. It's a reality of our world that sometimes our connections with our families help us to kind of go into profession. And so I actually saw Amber tag her daughter Taylor in a post that I shared. And I looked at it and I said, is Taylor a teacher? Because I actually remember she's in high school just a few years ago. And she said, oh, yeah. And both of us felt old in that moment. And then I asked immediately, I would love to have Taylor on the podcast as a new teacher. And so when we recorded this podcast, it is August 19th, the day we recorded it. And this is being released sometime in September. Taylor hadn't even taught a full week of school. And I wanted to kind of hear about her experience, what her expectations, what her hopes for. But it's also because I have this really gigantic belief that no matter where we are in our career, whether it's our first day, our last day, or anywhere in between, there is so much we can learn from each other. And when sometimes I hear people say, oh, you shouldn't really be sharing education unless you're 10 years in. I'm like, can you imagine that environment that people are coming in? It's like, shut your mouth until you have 10 years of experience. Like you have no value. And it's kind of a bad way to look at it. And I know that when I first entered education, there was so much I could learn, but there's so much I can contribute. And there is this one teacher, and she has passed away, but she had such an impact on me because she made me feel like $1 million. And brilliant educator, was amazing, especially teaching reading at the elementary level. And I was in charge of technology in the school in my first year. And not because I was really good at technology, but because nobody really knew what they're doing. And I just had the most experience using it. And I remember, this is weird, I was showing her how to use a mouse. And like the old school mouse that was plugged into the computer, and I was using it and I was showing her, and she wasn't very comfortable with technology. And she picked up the mouse and started squeezing it like a stress ball. And it was just a funny moment. And I spent so much time with her, teaching her different skills and technology. And she just had such a good sense of humor. She made me feel so welcome. And she spent so much time with me teaching reading. And she always made me feel that I had such a inherent value to the school, even though there was so much I didn't know. There was so much that I still to this day can get better at. And so wherever you are in your profession, if as soon as you stop learning, you're done teaching. That could be on your first day or in, your last year. And as long as you're learning, you'll always be someone we can learn from. And that's why I loved having Taylor on the podcast today, because she's so very fresh into the profession. But as I'm listening to her, boy, did she make me feel like she was so far ahead of me at the same time of profession. And she just has some really brilliant insights. I love talking to her. I know you're going to love listening to her. Not even 1 week into education, and just has so many great insights. I know you're going to love this podcast episode. So welcome back to another episode of the Innovator's Mindset. Hey everyone, this is George Couros. Welcome back to another episode of the Innovator's Mindset podcast. I'm so very blessed to have Taylor Teamann, who, and I hate doing this, is the daughter of Amber Teamann, who's a very good friend of mine. Because I know, nobody wants, like, I have a brother who's in education, and I hate when people say, oh, you're Alex's brother. I'm like, no, I'm George. Right? So, but that's how I know you. That's how I first met you. I met you, when you were a high school student. I know your whole family, and I saw that you were teaching, and I asked Amber, is it okay if I have Taylor on the podcast? And she's like, I think, let's be honest, she's like listening outside the door right now.
Probably.
Right?
Probably, yeah.
So I know she's your biggest fan. So Taylor is literally not even done 1 week of teaching. She
Mm-hmm.
not full week. She went
Yep.
through convocation. She went
Yep.
through the stuff, and she
Mm-hmm.
got her first full week ahead. And that's why I wanted you on the podcast. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm so excited to talk to you today, Taylor. For anyone who doesn't know you, if you could just tell us a little bit about who you are,
Mm-hmm.
what you do today, how you got there, it's a great place to start.
Okay, yeah. So, like you said, my name is Taylor. So I actually went to college for criminal justice. So this is like done a complete 180.
Really?
But yeah,
I didn't know that. I didn't know you were going to be a teacher, and that's why it kind of threw me
yeah.
off. So that's probably why. Yeah.
hmm and so the only constant within what I've always wanted to do career-wise has been kids. It
Mhm.
just has shifted from working with, criminally challenged kids to just
That's a new
regular.
term, criminally challenged. I like that.
Yeah, I don't know how to say that like politely.
Right. Right. All right.
But I just shifted into doing this. So, I mean, my long-term goal with criminal justice was I wanted to be able to help and teach kids in the system. That didn't pan out. And so then I've always loved teaching and helping children. So this was like my perfect avenue. And I have all these great people around me who have just been encouraging and supporting me. And so I really think I found what I want to do for the next, probably till I'm dead. So
Probably really bad. All
yeah.
right. Okay. Well, we'll see. And I already made Taylor promise that she's gonna come
Mhm.
back and check in on, so I can kind of follow her career, which would be really, really cool. We'll see how
Mhm.
kind of things progress. But I don't know if you're gonna do it till you're dead.
Yeah, maybe
Maybe
not,
not.
but
Maybe
long
not, right?
time.
You don't want to be with a teacher that dies in the classroom. So I
No,
just
no.
that would kind of suck. It's fascinating that you went into. Did you actually take any classes in that field in criminal justice? Did you take some of those classes?
Yeah, I took them for the 2 years I was like, that was all that I did.
Really? Oh,
Yeah,
really? Okay.
yeah.
Okay. What are some of the things that you learned? This is not a good. I don't know if it's a good question.
I don't
This is why
know.
we have editing buttons, right?
Yeah.
So, what are some of the things that you learned
Mhm,
in that class or in those classes in
mhm.
that program that you see? Because what do you? And you told me it's ELAR is what you said, right? That's
Yeah,
what you're
yeah.
teaching,
Yes.
right? And so there's so many acronyms in education. Wait, you're gonna be acronymed out, by the way. There's like so many acronyms in education.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Uh-huh.
which acronym is this? What is ELAR? What
It just stands for
just for
English
everybody else?
Language
I
Arts.
know what it is. I know
Yeah,
what
yeah,
it
yeah.
is, but for everybody else, what is that?
It just stands for English Language Arts and Reading. So basically the
Okay.
content subject that I'm teaching.
Okay, so how does the stuff that you did with criminal justice
Mhm.
actually do you see some overlap, some connection to what you're doing in ELAR?
I don't see the biggest overlap when it
Yeah,
comes to like content,
yeah,
but I do see it when it comes to, again, the relationship aspect because my last semester I was in, I want to say like 2 or 3 psychology classes, and we learned all about how the way in which a criminal thinks and all of the outside factors that are going to influence his behavior. So anything from family to trauma to where they live to brothers and sisters, like all of those things have a direct impact on somebody's mind and how they
yeah.
think. So a lot of it was a lot of people, they'll have this one huge thing happen to them in life. It could be a traumatic experience, it could be a positive experience, it could just be something, some big thing. And that one thing will stick with them for the rest of their life. And it will forever
Mhm.
influence why they act, how they act, what they say, what they do. And it all goes back to that one thing. So just knowing that every single day, anything I could say at any given point could be a sentence that that student is going to remember for the rest of their lives is something that you really have to focus on. If I'm having a bad day, I'm going to have to be extremely conscious about what I'm saying and how I'm acting because you never know what I do in that five
Right.
minute situation that could impact, everybody else around me.
That's such an incredible insight because I know it's weird. Like I'm pushing 50, right? And there are things and maybe it's a little too personal. I actually had a dream last night about playing high school basketball
Mhm.
for my coach, who was probably he was like a second dad to me.
Yeah.
in basketball. He passed away at a young age. He had dealt with some complications, and just even like waking up and thinking about his impact this
Yeah.
morning, and I'm like, I've
Mhm.
lived more of my life outside of school,
Yeah.
like as a student than in,
Mhm.
and to think about that incredible impact. The other thing I was
Yeah.
thinking of as you were talking, I I actually did the discipline for my school when I was assistant principal, and
Mhm.
it's kind of seen as an assistant principal job
Yeah.
or dean. Like we didn't have a dean of students. That's kind
Yeah.
of.
Mhm.
But when I became principal, I also did the discipline
Okay.
because I actually said I want to do it. And
Mhm.
reason, and you could probably figure this out. The reason I want to do it is because I was a terrible kid,
Yeah.
right? And I was a troublemaker. And so when
Uh-huh.
kids would get sent to the office, I'm like, "Is that all you did? Are you kidding?" Like, right?
Yeah.
Like I did way worse stuff. And
Yeah.
when I grew up, you could do way worse stuff and get
Mhm.
away with it.
Yeah.
And it's just fascinating. And there's always kind of that you can tell you have that kind of an empathy. I'm not saying you're a bad kid because obviously you graduated school way quicker than I ever could have. Obviously having an empathy and understanding
Mhm.
of students maybe who have some behavioral stuff,
Yeah.
even kids, to be honest, with you, that don't have behavioral stuff, but
Mhm.
still understanding how big of an impact your
Mhm.
influence has and sticking with them
Yeah.
is really powerful. So I'm curious about this because
Mhm.
you're done school in 2 years, like you have a full education degree. Why why accelerate it? I'm curious about that. Like why not like have a full 4 years of
Mhm.
college? That's kind of a lot of people. It, why not have a full six like I did?
Mhm.
Right? Right,
Um,
when you could have done it in 4, but I said,
yeah.
"Just keep going," right? So, like, what was the reasoning for that? Yeah.
So actually, my degree is criminal justice. Like I
Okay,
graduated with, so I don't have an education degree.
okay.
I'm doing alt cert. But with that being said, my degree was a fairly easy,
Transition.
yes, and
Yep.
it was something that it's not like I got a finance degree or an accounting like degree. So
Right,
my degree was pretty straightforward. So I mean, if you're doing A, B, and C, you're gonna pass the class. Like
right,
there was no, I didn't have to do any type of internship or anything like that. So I think that all kind of plays into why it took me didn't only
right.
only took me 2 years, because I wasn't really struggling with any of my classes.
Yeah,
I mean, I love school. Like I like
right,
school. I've always liked school. So doing like going to class and doing my homework was never something I saw as like oh, I don't want to do this. So it just kind of came
right,
natural. And then next thing I know, it was over. And then I was like, oh wow, I probably should have done all of these other things to make it worthwhile. But it's probably easier saying that in
right.
retrospect. But I mean, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
So what like when you think about your, because you seem to have a pretty good experience in school.
Mhm.
What did you actually like? What's something that you remember specifically as a student that you
Mhm.
think would make an impact on the way you teach? Like something. I know we talked about your one teacher.
Yeah.
What was her name again? Mrs. Phil
Philippos.
Philippos.
Mhm.
Sounds like a Greek name, by the way. I don't know. I don't know if it seems like a Greek name, but I don't know
Yeah.
if I'm just making hoping it's Greek. Now, Greeks always find other Greeks. So, um, what is that like an experience you had? Something that,
Mhm.
really you think about when you think about your school experience and maybe you're trying to like recreate it for your students.
Oh, so there's I could give you two. Could give you two,
Okay.
and they're both very different. One, I think I was very fortunate in being able to find like-minded friends.
Yeah.
So my whole friend group, I mean, it's actually funny. Mrs. Philippos is where we all met, and we all became really close in her
Yeah.
class. And every single year, we would demand our principal to put us all in the same class. And it just kind of became a thing. So I
Right.
think I was fortunate enough to find peers and friends that had the same mindset as me that didn't want to, skip class or do those kinds of things, but
Yeah.
like they were also invested in school and what we were doing. So I think I always had those kind of people to lean on. So I never could get, off track or do other things that I wasn't supposed to be doing because all of my friends, are kind of like, hey, you're supposed to be doing this, not that.
Right.
And then again, in Mrs. Philippos's class, we had this huge project. I don't remember. I think it was called Innovation, something like that. But we had this huge project where we basically just got to pick anything we want.
Hmm.
Basically you just do whatever you want, but the catch was we had to like make an impact or make a difference. And it could be as little as making someone's day, or it could be, I had one friend who put on a full 3-act play and production for our whole entire school. And so
Right.
that project really was able, and it taught us so many other things than just making an impact. Personally, I did a canned food drive for a woman's safe house in Dallas. So for
Yeah.
women who have been trafficked and all of those kinds of things. But the way she was able to kind of integrate our content was we had to write a 10-minute speech. And then we had to give our speech in front of, I think it was 4 schools. I think it was our school, intermediate school, junior high, that kind of thing. And so, I mean, that project actually won an award. No, maybe I didn't. I think I got second place. I think I got second place.
Better than I've ever done in anything.
I think I got second place, but that is a project that I will consistently think about, because not only one was I able to do, and I think I raised over like $4,000 worth of stuff. So not only one was I able to help, but it also, I learned in her class, I learned how to write a speech and how to talk in front of people. Like, I don't think I would be able to sit here and talk one-on-one with you without being able to do that 6-month-long project, because I had to get over a fear of public speaking. I had to get over a fear of talking to strangers. I had to get over the fear of talking about things that I probably don't want to talk about, that kind of thing. And so those 2 things are just 2 things that came to mind when you said that.
Yeah, there's something I talk about with the groups that I work with, and I think you did such a great job of being an example of that you really do have to try to understand the passions of kids, what their strengths are, and tap into that. And I think that's a really important aspect. And I think when you have that opportunity to make a difference, explore a project, there's that. But the other part of it too is you got to find the balance of like exposing kids to things that they might not know they're interested in, might not know they're good at. And actually, sometimes when you have that experience in school, it changes things for you and to actually push you out of your comfort zone. Because if you just focus on people's strengths only, a lot of times what could be their strengths are lost out. And your ability to, like, even I asked you before, you are the most, you're the newest teacher that's ever been on my podcast. And I said, are you nervous? You're like, no. All right, fine then. Just because nobody listens to it, you still should be nervous, right? So that to me is like such a great example of that, because it is kind of exposing our students to that. And I think that's like one of the reasons I want to ask you. I know the experience of being a student in school is so fresh for you. As you go into teaching, like how important it is to recreate some of those experiences and like what really resonates. What you didn't say is like, oh, like I remember this test, right? Which nobody really cares about, right? After the fact. So I just think that's such a powerful example. I absolutely love that. And so it's gonna be kind of neat to see how you do that in your career. Now I do have to ask you, and I don't know if you're gonna be mad at me asking you this, but I know your mom, and I know she's in education. Were you ever in your mom's school? Like, were you ever in your mom's school?
Yes, for 1 year.
For 1 year only. That was it.
Yes, it was her. Yeah, it was her. I think it was her first couple of years of teaching. It was at Beaver Technology Center. I was in kindergarten. She taught
okay, so it's a long time ago.
Oh yeah, that was forever ago.
So how has having a parent in education influenced you as an educator?
Well, I think it's like a double-edged sword, On the one hand, I know I can text my mom in the middle of the day and be like, hey, this situation is going on, help. And she's going to text me like a perfect like 3-paragraph response and be able to help me. But then I also have, I guess there's 2 things really. I always will be Amber Teamann's daughter. Like my principal used to work with her, and she still calls me Amber. Like she forgets and she'll call me Amber. So I have like such a role model, in education. So I always will have to, try and do above and beyond so I can, meet the standards that my mom has already set, which is not a bad thing at all. But it will always just be kind of something I will always have to work harder for. But I mean, I love it. Like if I can call my mom and be like, "Hey, can you help me?" and she's gonna say yes. I mean, that's like the best scenario I could ever use. You could have.
What's going to happen right now, right? So she's watching this video. She's about to clip it, and she's going to use it against you,
Yeah,
right?
probably.
Right?
Yeah.
You're like, do you remember what you said on George's podcast? Yeah, she's going to keep using it against you, and actually interesting because those 3-paragraph answers, she just messages me and says, "Hey, Taylor needs this. Can you tell me what to do?" And then
Yeah. It's coming from you.
I'm totally kidding. I would have no idea. So yeah, I love that. And that's pretty powerful. I will tell you this though, and this is the one place I'll disagree with you. And I know this. I know your mom well enough that you will make your own way. You're not going to be in her shadow, right? Like you benefit from the experience, but I can already tell your school is very blessed to have you. The stuff and it's kind of weird because you probably got an education on being an educator before you even went to school. Because I'm sure you've seen the ups of education and the stresses of it too, which is really fascinating. All right, so you're basically not even a full week into school, which I love. I love asking about this. What was the first like few days like? How did you feel kind of going through that process? What was that like? And that's one of the biggest reasons I want to interview. I just want to see like how did it go? How was your first few days of school?
So honestly, they went a lot better than I thought they were. I tried really hard to make sure that I was prepared for every situation that could have possibly came up. And so, I mean, I like over prepped and over planned, and I had like 45 different activities just in case something went wrong. I had something to fall back on. The first day, it was definitely chaos. I mean, kids didn't know where we were going. I didn't know I had recess duty. I didn't know I had to get them from lunch. Like all of these things, I had no idea. But I figured it out, and honestly, it went pretty good. Like I think it was the best 3 days I could have asked for. Like I didn't have any problems. Students seemed to like me. They gave me gifts and everything. So
what?
I know.
I had for the first week. There you go.
I know.
Oh, wait till Christmas time. That's going to be another whole other thing. If you're getting gifts the first week, it is. As you're talking about this, how much I over planned. And I'm not saying I am saying, you totally probably over planned intentionally, right?
All the time.
And that to me is, because you don't know. And the interesting thing is, I could feel way more nervousness, obviously, about you with your first week of kids than you are being on my podcast. That's for sure, right? Right? You ask me no questions about. You're like, I'll show up. I'll do whatever you want. When you're probably because you're exhausted from their first week of school, and just kind of like listening to that. The thing that I know I feel this too. That nervousness of the first week, it will never go away.
Yeah,
right.
I've heard that.
And it is weird because it's new kids every year, and you always want to make a really good first impression. And that's one of the beautiful things about teaching. When you have different grades every year, you always have an opportunity to make a first impression over and over and over again. So that to me, that's really cool. Okay, so that's the student side of it. What about like I don't know if I should ask you this, and if maybe we'll edit it out if you get. I don't want to get in trouble the first week of school. Like, what was some experience that you had? Because I go on Twitter sometimes and see like, oh, stuff. I hate it. I'm like, do you really like we should? I know there's always times that we need for planning and stuff like that too. But there's the thing that you said that I really appreciated about your teacher was creating a space for you all to get together. And because I have amazing friends from my hometown that it was the same thing. We had a very similar, I don't know, I guess, I don't want to say childhood because it's like you're teaching now, but it is your childhood. Is my friend group pushed me, and I never was a drinker. I never really got in trouble because I was always playing sports on the weekend. and I didn't have time to get in trouble because I was too busy doing stuff that, that has positively impacted me. But,
Mhm.
when you're bringing staff together, it's the same thing. Like, are you creating a
Mhm.
space where people come together?
Yeah.
They create a space where they can count on one another, they support
Mhm.
one another. Because if we all just kind of go off in our rooms, it
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily. So, like, how is that? How is, with the adults? Like, what was like one? And I'm not going to ask you a negative thing because I don't want you to get in trouble. But like,
Mhm.
what was one of the best things that you experienced on the teacher level or the
Yeah.
colleague level of the last week?
Mhm. So I was super nervous because
Yep.
I guess I'm young, I still live with my parents, like I just came from college. So
Yep.
I was nervous that the staff and my team, I felt like I wasn't going to be respected, or my opinions and my ideas, like I felt like those
Yep.
weren't going to be something that they just take seriously, because this is my first year. I've never done this before, I have no idea what I'm doing. But everyone has been so kind. Like,
Yeah.
I've had 3 teachers come into my room and just been like, you're doing so good. Like, the support is definitely like overwhelming, and I really appreciate it. I haven't had any negative experience yet. I mean, I know I've
Yeah.
only been there for 3 weeks, but my team is super great. I've made 2 really good friends with the girls down the hallway. Like, everyone has just been so incredibly helpful and kind. And so I really feel comfortable, if I need something, I can go ask literally anyone. And
So
I'll,
I
yeah.
love that. So and this is like an age generational thing.
Uh-huh.
Totally, totally. The big thing you would hear is that when you entered education, when I was not your age, but like 5 years older,
Yeah.
I was a slow learner, and was that a lot of teachers wouldn't share their stuff with you because their mentality was, well, I've like built this my whole career. I'm not just handing it over to
Yeah.
somebody.
Yeah.
And I was really blessed to actually have a colleague on my very first day saying like, "Hey, I've been teaching for a long time,
Yeah.
and anything that you need from me, it's all here. And you can come grab whatever you need." And it just made my life so easy to start because I didn't know what I was doing. And,
Yeah.
like, I really didn't understand. This is embarrassing. I didn't really understand curriculum. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't understand that was a thing. I was just like,
Uh-huh.
hey, I'm sure if I follow this textbook, it
Yeah.
will cover the curriculum.
Uh-huh.
And so it was just really a blessing. So it's really refreshing to
Mhm.
hear that, to
Yeah.
hear how they've made you feel so welcome. So I love hearing that.
Yeah.
I know you have, obviously you have a principal at your school.
Mhm.
I'm curious about when you were a student,
Yes.
uh not like in high school, middle school, elementary school. Do you
Mhm.
remember like any of your principals? Do you remember seeing your principals? Like, is there something like a positive thing that you could share that stuck out
Yeah.
about any of your principals from when
Mhm.
you were a kid?
So I'm probably, because it was the most recent school I went to,
Yeah.
but my high school principal, his name is Verdi Montgomery, and he is in the Wiley Murphy, area where I grew up. He's a legend. He's famous.
Really?
I mean, every Christmas he would dress up as an elf, and he would go outside and he would sit on our marquee, and it'd be Elf on the Shelf. He was at every event. We did this thing called AMO games, where if you saw him in public, we had to take a picture with him and our class would get points. Like, he drove a decked out maroon car with AMO, which is our school's slogan, I guess,
Yeah.
license plate. Like, he lived, I breathed Wiley High School. Like, he
Yeah.
loved Wiley High School. And so, I mean, I saw him every day. He knew my name. He still wishes me happy birthday. Every student, he wishes happy birthday. And I mean, he was just so involved that I don't
Yeah.
think I'll ever be able to forget him. And now that probably isn't a good thing because I can't remember the rest of my principals. But him, I definitely will always remember.
That's amazing. And that, not excuse me, that was at the high school level?
Hmm.
Right. And that actually I always talk about how important relationships are in education.
Hmm.
And I acknowledge it's really harder to do that at the high school level because of sheer population of
Yeah.
schools, the number of students a teacher will have. But I
Hmm.
always say it's harder, but it's still no less important.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that you can kind of connect with that. I love hearing that story.
Hmm.
So last question I got for you.
Okay.
So your first weekend, how, when you finish this year,
Mhm.
I know we're kind of looking ahead here. When you finish this year,
Yeah.
what would be a successful first year for you? Like, how would that look?
Oh goodness. Probably I if I don't get in trouble, I guess. Honestly,
Right.
I'm so nervous to make a mistake, and
Yeah.
I don't know how to handle like a professional mistake, like
Right.
I don't understand that yet. So I'm hoping I can just, follow the rules, follow the book and have no problems.
Right.
But for students wise, I think the relationships is going to be what I know I've already said that, but
Yeah.
I want for they to move on to sixth grade, but still pass through my hallway and be like, "Hey, Mrs. Teamann, how are you?" Like, I want that to kind of be my goal. I want to be the kind of teacher that I had, where I'm never going to be able to forget Mrs. Philippos. And so I
Right.
hope that by the end of this year, I'll be the kind of fifth grade teacher that these kids are never going to be able to forget. Which might be, I'm shooting for the stars here, but I'd rather, dream
Yeah.
big than not at all. So.
Well, it's funny. I actually there's something really special about your first group of students.
Yeah.
And I actually have a lot of students who I taught in grade 4, my very first year,
Mhm.
my first full year of teaching, who we're connected on Instagram. They have
Aw.
families.
Yeah.
You see them, and we'll like comment on each other's stuff, and you feel you really feel. I guarantee this. I know you're gonna have an incredible career, but I also guarantee you're gonna look back
Mhm.
on this first year and go like, oh my God, right? Like, I
Yeah.
wish I'd have done this. I wish I'd done this.
Yeah.
Because and I've always said this, if you don't, you're probably not a very good teacher, because if you don't grow in the profession,
Mhm.
then, but that being said,
Mhm.
in your very first year, you can have such a tremendous impact.
Yeah.
And I'm reminded of that too, that I had an impact at my worst in
Mhm.
education, because just like you, I really wanted to make a positive environment,
Yeah.
make a positive
Mhm.
impact on kids. So, I, you know, don't break the rules. I don't think you're gonna get in trouble. That would suck if you did. But
Yeah.
if you keep doing what you're saying you're doing,
Yeah.
you're gonna be awesome. So Taylor, it is Saturday. I know that there's probably way better things you could be doing on a Saturday afternoon. But I just
Mhm.
thanks for taking the time to be on the podcast. It's really was
Yeah.
your enthusiasm for the profession is something that I hope will spread everywhere. And I hope,
Yeah.
to be honest with you, I hope it sticks. So,
Yeah.
anyways,
I think
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
I hope it sticks. And I know your family well enough that I'm pretty sure it will. But everyone, thanks for listening to the podcast.
Yeah.
Taylor, thanks for being on. It was such an incredible
Thank you for
opportunity to
having
like
me.
talk to you. So I'm looking forward to crossing paths. Maybe not in an airport the next time. So we'll see each other
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Taylor, and thanks everyone for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day.